in against the Utah Jazz. How did they take care of business? And what has Daniel Gafford brought to the starting lineup to get the Mavericks to a 9-1 record since he started? We'll talk about all that and more in today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
The Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Engstead, media member and NBA channel manager of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Let it ride. On the audio podcast. on the video, this is kind of awkward. Thanks for being part of the show and making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. With the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day on any podcast platform, Spotify, Apple. Leave a 5-star review on that and comment anything below on YouTube. Let me know, what's a better nickname for the Mavericks than Lob City? Because we can't just do Lob City Mavs, right? Because they already did it for the Clippers. So how do you do, is it Lob City Mavs, Dallas Dunkers, something that, come up with a better name than that. Let me know in the comment section. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest way to play.
What's up, Steve? How's it going? Hope you're having a good morning. Good. Thank you.
Going into this game, the Jazz need to take care of business. We'll talk about how they did take care of business. Jason Kidd is preaching patience and hopes the public will be patient. That was a quote from Jason Kidd. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later. Mavs move up to 6th in the West standings. We'll talk about how important that is and some of the really key games coming for the Mavericks a little later on. And we'll talk about Daniel Gafford. What has he brought to the starting lineup? But I got to start here.
Your Warriors have engaged the enemy.
Difference between what we've seen from the Mavericks and this game, kind of encapsulated a lot of the Mavs games recently. Kind of encapsulated what the Mavs
Base is under attack.
Better than they did in this game tonight, but they're a team that can rebound. They're a team that has dunkers and athletes all over the place. We are not used to a team like the Dallas Mavericks with athletes like they have. The Mavs in this game, 18 dunks total in this game. That's the most in over 20 years. That's from StatMuse. 18 dunks for the Mavericks tonight. They
Base is under attack.
Shots. So the Mavericks missed almost half of their shots. I guess that's close to a third. And it's insane. When the Mavs go 10 of 32 from 3, so they shoot 31%. And again, we're seeing this again and again.
Base is under attack.
Where if they take 43s and they didn't make 40% of them, 37% of them, a decent percentage of their threes, they were toast. They were done. You just looked around and you said, well, they just couldn't get the ball in. They just couldn't hit the threes, and so might as well just pack it up and go.
Your Warriors have engaged the enemy.
Or whatever, with the free wings. And instead, this new Mavs team.
Base is under attack.
Now, is the three-point shooting still concerning? Yeah, we talked about that yesterday. Mavericks.
Base is under attack.
They have different ways of winning games now. In this one, you get 60 points in the paint. You also allowed 60 points in the paint, but you scored 60 points in the paint, so you would add. This one, they didn't. Talk about that in a second. But the Mavs were able to create some turnovers, get to the other side, and they also created some dunks in the half-court. And we haven't seen that a lot from a Mavericks team either. And so this new-look Mavericks team finding a way to win games without hitting threes and not having to go off for a big number. In the past,
Base is under. Your Warriors have engaged the enemy.
Luka go off for the Mavericks. Larry Markkinen did play in this game, but no Jordan Clarkson. No John Collins in this game either, even though we thought he was going to play. But
Research complete.
End up playing. This is not a very good Jazz team. They shot 4 of 30 from 3. There have only been 4 teams now. The entire season, think about all the games that have played. The entire season. 4
Your
teams
warriors have engaged the enemy.
taken 30 or more threes and have missed 4, or have only made 4 or less. So the Jazz have
Warriors have engaged the enemy.
So really bad shooting. Some credit for that, but if it's that bad, you just gotta think. All right, it's just a really bad shooting night for the Jazz. If it was the Mavericks on the other end, some of those threes go down. But they don't have a ton of great shooters. I mean, they start Kessler, you start Taylor Hendricks, you start Chris Dunn. Keontae George was 1 of 6 in the game. You think Larry Markkinen normally
Your warriors have engaged the enemy.
just didn't have a ton of context to go 3. Just didn't have a lot of go-to. The Jazz are just running out of options and running out of guys, and honestly, running out of games. We saw me on WFAA. Game was on WFAA, and I went on WFAA midday today.
Your warriors have engaged the enemy.
The 3 things that or what are the I don't know. I don't think I have an answer because they're kind of running out of options. They're running out of games. They're one of those teams. They're just sliding at the end of a season, and that's what it is. But the Mavs had to come in and take care of business themselves. They did. They got 8 and now the Mavs team has a kind of different win games in different ways. 3 games are done. This season, last season. Games ago. Awesome to see.
Research complete.
Just iso ball or nothing. Now the Mavs can still do that, and that's what helps this team with the different ways they can win games. It's not just all right. It's only iso ball, kick out, spray 3, all that. They also can do passes. We're gonna get stops. We're gonna make dunks.
Mineral field.
The most by any team. Absolutely insane for the Mavericks, and it kind of starts with their defense right now. Front. Really rough. Answer a lot of questions that the Mavericks have. They've got a rim protector. They've got a guy in the middle that can get rebounds, finish. And Daniel Gafford. We'll talk about him a little bit. They've got a guy here that can guard the point of attack. Looking for
Mineral field depleted.
even I think when Josh Green comes back from injury,
Mineral field depleted.
to start, I think. And they got PJ Washington, who some of you have because he put guys in jail. And Larry Markkinen in this game, 6 of 20. 1 of 9. PJ Washington, Max Leva also helped Larry Markkinen. Obviously had switches where Larry Markkinen was guarded by other players, but PJ Washington I think did a good job on Larry Markkinen, making his life really tough, and he was really frustrated by the end of the game. A lot of people frustrated about the player on the Jazz, but and that's something we know PJ Washington can do because he's guarded a bunch of different players. And so you have that front line. Luka and Kyrie just doing whatever the hell
Upgrade
they can
complete.
to get enough points to win. That's a recipe. A lot of wins for the Mavericks. And so it's a good lineup that Jason Kidd has found. And so now we take a look at what this team is going forward. Let's talk about the Mavericks. 9-1. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy. You can go to Prize Picks right now, and there's tons of stuff for the NBA. You can pick. All you have to do is pick 2 different players, and more or less. Not algorithms know exactly what they're doing. check it out. Players gonna flow in for you. Go to Prize.com/LockedInNBA. Use that code LockedInNBA. Actually, $103. Anybody can use $103. And then thanks for hanging out with Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. And go check out the Sunday. Continue to content. I'll send text straight to your phone. Mavs updates, Mavs notes during the game.
Base is under attack. Upgrade complete. Upgrade complete.
Strong in traffic. Love Derek Lively. Derek Lively's brought a lot of things to this Mavericks team. He's awesome to start the year. He's played decently well. I don't think he had a great game in this one, but he obviously impacted the game in just his 15 minutes. But Daniel Gafford can finish around anybody. You saw the play last game against the Spurs where Victor Wembanyama is behind him, and usually that's a recipe for Wembanyama is just going to block your shot. But Daniel Gafford, how strong he is, just went up real strong with the ball in his hands, pushed Wembanyama from behind, or like Wembanyama was behind him and pushed him backwards, got the dunk because he was so strong that Wembanyama couldn't get it out of his hands. Like, that is finishing strong for Daniel Gafford. He's big, and him just fighting for rebounds. Lively too, but Gafford fighting for rebounds allows the Mavericks to get rebounds. 11 offensive rebounds. Gafford got 3 of them. And other ones were tipped out to P.J. Washington, tipped out to Luka, Kyrie, Maxey, Jaden Hardy. All got offensive rebounds in this game. And we're not used to the Mavs guards getting offensive rebounds. We're not used to the Mavs getting offensive rebounds. But him fighting for boards and keeping bigs occupied in the paint is just such a big plus for the Mavericks, something that we haven't seen from this team in a long time. And it's great to see Daniel Gafford in the paint, getting that done, finishing. And he's getting there defensively. Sometimes his rotations are not exactly where he's supposed to be. They're still trying to figure that out. It's still ironing out. It's still figuring out how to be in the right place at the right time. And you have to process everything that's happening on the floor so quickly that sometimes guys are in the wrong spot and things like that. But he brings a big presence, and he is a deterrent, and he alters shots. And he's there, and he's big in the paint. Plays 27 minutes, and then Derek Lively played 15 minutes. Small little bit. Room, but came back on the bench after that and started the second half. So the Mavs only had but Daniel Gafford's brought a lot to this starting lineup. Mavs are 9-1. Some of it's because of coincidence because of where the what the schedule is, but he's brought a ton to that starting lineup. And now you have Lively on the bench, where I think he's also better suited to take advantage of his chemistry with Kyrie, and I think they have great chemistry. Of a smaller center to be able to get through them, to be able to over those guys. So I think that's been a big positive for the Mavericks as well. That he has urged that backup, and he's the backup center, and Dwight Powell can come in as a victory cigar. How great is that? That's what Dwight Powell should have been for a couple of years now, I think.
Thanks for the sub.
He should be a fan. He should be a fan favorite.
Much appreciated.
Dwight Powell, he's the guy that stuck with us. He's been with us through so many iterations of this team. He's played with Dirk. He's played with Justin.
Please follow my YouTube channel.
Jr. He's played with Luka. He's played with Dorian Finney-Smith. Like, he spans so many different eras of the Mavericks.
I need more YouTube subs.
And it's great to see the Mavericks. You can throw him out there as a victory cigar instead of as the starting center. But the Mavs have this great rotation of centers now that Daniel Gafford is playing, getting the minutes that he is. 10 of 11 from the field. He needs to be hyper efficient in there. He knows what he is. He knows exactly what he is, and so does Lively. But Gafford knows exactly what he is that, is strong, big in the paint, and all that. It's exactly what the Mavericks could have hoped that he would be when the Mavs traded for him. And I've seen this a couple places. People say, "Oh, Daniel Gafford, worth the first-round pick." The Mavs traded a pick swap for him. They traded the pick swap to the Thunder, and the Thunder's pick went to the Warriors. So, also, the Mavs didn't give up a first-round pick. They gave up a pick swap for that. And so, totally worth it. Completely worth it to give up a pick swap for Daniel Gafford. Absolutely. Other things in this game, I think that Luka Doncic, 34 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, and just an absolutely beautiful alley-oop pass to Kyrie Irving. An amazing pass to Kyrie Irving in transition. Kyrie Irving now has 4 dunks on the season. That's his career high in dunks. He's had 4 dunks in 2 other seasons. 13 and 2015 was the last
That's
season.
annoying.
Kyrie
A little
Irving,
bit.
The most dunks he's had since 2015. That's almost a decade. That's almost a decade since Kyrie has had 4 dunks in a season. And he did it during Ramadan again tonight. Just, I don't know. We've seen it. The Mavericks feel like they're back in a groove. Feels like they're back in. Feels like they're back in the pocket. Feels like their chemistry is back there. When Kyrie Irving hit that dunk in transition, got the alley-oop from Luka. If you've seen that play, go watch that clip again. Watch the Mavs bench. Watch them all get up. Omax, Gafford, Lawson, Markieff Morris, Dwight, everything. Watch them all get up. And you cheer. There's something about when Kyrie Irving does something awesome, gets this whole team excited, gets them all pumped up, and it's me too. But there's something about Kyrie. Luka does great things too. Luka does awesome things too. Not taking anything away from him. But there's something about when Kyrie does something, and everybody comes up because he's 6'2". He's the same size as like a walking around you. And when he does something awesome, he had a couple of dribble moves and finishes tonight. Absolutely awesome. He scored 16 points. Didn't shoot particularly well. Had a couple of wide open or just pull-up jumpers that he missed in this game. But when he does something awesome, the Mavs seem to rally around it and come together and get really hyped for it. And we've been looking for where's the Mavs chemistry? Where is that chemistry that we saw in the bubble from 2 years ago when they went to the Western Conference Finals? They used to be this team that you bet on their chemistry. Their chemistry would take them a little bit farther than some of their parts. And Jalen Brunson leaves, Dorian Finney-Smith leaves, Boban leaves, Theo Pinson leaves, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, where are our culture guys? Where are the guys that are going to start rallying these guys together? And in a different way than those 4 other guys I just mentioned, Kyrie has kind of, I feel like, rallied this team a little bit. Him doing pushing the team ahead of himself. I think that he has helped push that culture a little bit further, and I think that's exactly what the Mavericks needed next week. Luka is going to give the team their best chance to win a game any single time. And Kyrie is going to help push the rest of the team forward and to build that culture. And I think that they have really complemented each other well in doing that. And so I wanted to point that out because the alley-oop was incredible, but I think it was a good synergy to see the bench get all excited, to see Daniel Gafford befuddled afterwards and just start looking around. It was an amazing play. Coming up, I want to talk about Jaden Hardy. I think he's making a case for some more minutes. Jason Kidd tried some presentations about it, and we'll talk about where the Mavs are in the standings. We'll talk about all that and more coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Go check out eBay Motors to see what kind of parts you can get for your car. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home a winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle, level it up to peak performance from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or eBay Motors has got you covered with 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And eBay Motors has an eBay Guaranteed Fit, which means that your part is guaranteed to fit or take your money back. eBay Motors, your burner rubber. eBayMotors.com. Ride or die. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to All right, Isaac, let's talk about Jaden Hardy. He plays 17 minutes. He hits 2 threes in this game. He has 5 assists as well. And he plays more than Tim Hardaway, but he did play some garbage time. There's a little bit of a, should they play Jaden, should they play Tim? And I'm at a point right now where I don't know what Tim brings that Jaden Hardy couldn't get. And I think Hardy brings things that Tim definitely 5 assists. Tim has had some moments where he's had some good plays and some good passing plays, but Jaden Hardy can give you a pick and roll lob to Daniel Gafford. Awesome. He can give you a hit a cutter and drive and like kick out somebody for a Tim Hardaway can do it. I think the Mavericks need a little bit of that every once in a while, especially now that we're looking at
Oh, no.
where they're not as reliant on the three. And they can get more ball. Excellent was talking about that too. Gets a couple of assists. Somebody else besides Luka
Dang it,
and Kyrie
man.
able to do that, especially in the rest of the regular season. I would love to see Jaden Hardy play that fourth guard off the bench minutes.
So I need to go Twilight
Instead of
Forge,
Tim,
I guess.
Jaden Hardy.
And just
Kid
cannon at each
tonight,
base.
was asked about Jaden Hardy. He was asked about what he was asked about can Jaden Hardy play more minutes and things like that. And he said, I would like the public to have patience, that there are a couple of guys ahead of him in the lineup. He said, Hardy, I thought I played incredible for us off the bench. And yes, he should get more minutes, but there's only 48. There's a couple of guys in front. I'd like the public to be patient. His teammates all know he can play. The public can be patient. I just think it's time. Tim has not played well at all. We can all see it. All of us see it. And maybe he thinks that they just have to have Tim because they're going to need a quarter in the playoffs for Tim to hit 5 threes or 4 threes.
Okay. Well,
Honestly, I'd take 3 threes right now at this point.
yeah.
Tim's playing.
That's what I need to do. I need to get a Forge. Twilight Forge.
It's hard for me to look at the play of Tim Hardaway
Could
Jr.
go
and
Twilight
the flashes
Robo,
that Jaden
too.
Hardy shows and say, you know what? Just by what they need right now, just by
you
how
don't have
they're
enough
playing right now,
gas
what
as
have you
it
done for me
is.
lately? Tim should be playing over Jaden Hardy. I don't think you can make that case, and I think Jaden Hardy's making a case that he should be playing over him. And so, okay, Kid is preaching patience, and Kid always waits a little bit longer to make some of these moves than I think a lot of us want. Of course, we always want things
I'm
to
just
going to
start doing Twilight Forges.
But
I like it.
I don't think that there's a big case to be made besides,
I like
we
it.
can't have Tim lose complete confidence going into a playoff run because what if Hardy's – honestly, you know what? I take that back. I don't see the reason because if you're going to say, well, Tim, like Hardy's just going to be lost on defense. How about Tim? Tim is lost on defense too. We see it all the time. I don't think that there's anything that Tim Hardaway is going to bring besides maybe audacity. Tim has audacity as a shooter, and sometimes you need that. Tim will take a 3 that you didn't know that he could take. You didn't know was going to be available to him. And so maybe that's the only thing I can think of at this point right now. But Jaden Hardy can bring pick and roll plays. He can bring that shooting. He can bring a mid-range shot. He'll take that every once in a while. We've seen him hit it over the last couple of games where he'll just create a shot on his own. And sometimes he needs Luka and Kyrie to take a play off. And Kyrie are on the court, and Hardy's on the court, good things happen. And so I think right now he's running out of excuses and running out of reasons to not play Hardy over Tim Hardaway. Hardy's playing some good basketball, adding some good things to this team, and his detractors are the same detractors that Tim has. So, I don't know. I'm running out. Tim goes 0-4 tonight, misses 3 threes. Again, he takes tough threes, but we're running out of excuses here for him. The Mavs move up to 6th, and let's hope they never move back again because 6 is a good spot to be in. You're waiting for one of those teams to falter, the Oklahoma City, the Minnesota Timberwolves, or the Nuggets. Right now, the Mavs would play the Timberwolves in the first round, and they would completely miss the play-in. That's something the Mavericks absolutely need to do. They need to miss the play-in because in the play-in you're playing the Kings or the Suns in the first game. And then if you lose, you're playing Steph Curry or LeBron in the second game. That's a tough slate of 2 games to try and go make the playoffs. So hopefully they stay in 6 here. They've got another game against the Jazz. They've got 3 days off now. That's absolutely huge for the Mavericks to have 3 days off. So to get guys some rest, to get guys healthy. 3 buys Josh Green 3 more days in his injury. He's going to be out weeks, but still buys him some more time. And then they play 2 games against Sacramento. And those games are huge because the Mavericks are down 0-2 to Sacramento this season. But they beat Sacramento. That's 2 losses for Sacramento, who lost the Wizards tonight, by the way. Thank you, Washington. Thank you, Wizards. Thank you for Daniel Gafford. And thank you for beating the Sacramento Kings. The Mavericks fans, the community, thank you very much. Kings 40-29, Mavericks 41-29. So Mavs hand them 2 losses. That would be massive. That would be absolutely massive in the standings because it's hard to move up and down right now. Not on a 7-game moved at all. They lose 4 games in a row and then they move down 1. It's like, man. Or they move down 3. So, King's schedule is also really tough the rest of the way. Kind of talked about it yesterday with Dana, but it's a really tough schedule for the Kings. The Suns also have a really tough schedule. I'm recording right now as the Suns are playing the Hawks, and so the Suns are winning the game. But by the time you listen to this, you'll know what the finish is of that game. But the Suns have kind of fallen off a little bit. I was listening to the Reddick's podcast with Tim Legler from the weekend where they talk about the Mavs and Nuggets game, and Tim Legler said a lot of really great things about the Mavs, by the way. Tim Legler's back. The Mavs didn't embarrass themselves in front of Tim Legler. Let's go. Remember Tim Legler said amazing great things on Adam Maraz's podcast.
Mine.
He was like buying the Mavericks and buying after the trades and all that. And then the Mavs 5 to 6. And we were like, no, don't embarrass us in front of Tim Legler, Mavs. But he's back. He's back on. I don't think he ever left. But he's back on the Mavs train and excited about what he saw in that Denver game. But in that podcast, in that podcast, he talked about the Suns, and he's like, man, the Suns are just completely fallen off, and they have lost their identity. Offensively, they've really fallen off. He really doesn't know what to expect from them on any given night. They lost a game to the Bucks without Giannis. That's a tough one to lose, and they lost some clutch games here or there. And so the Suns are kind of falling a little bit. The Kings, the Mavs have 2 games ahead of themselves where they play them, and the Mavs' destiny is in their hands with the rest of the schedule. We're doing standings watch every single game. And then there's the Pelicans. Pelicans are in 5th. They're a game and a half ahead of the Mavs. And it looks like Brandon Ingram just went down with a big. Tough break for the New Orleans Pelicans. Tough break for my guy Jake Madison over at Locked On Pelicans. But the Pelicans are not unreachable right now with where they are in the standings. A game and a half. It's only a game and a half difference between the Mavs and the Pelicans. The Pelicans are 42 and 27. The Mavs
A Thor follow-up.
And then you want to.
I had to guess.
Let me just hide over here for a little bit. And then I just listened to Locked On Clippers today with Darian Baziri, and he's like, "Where did it all go wrong with this Clippers team? Who are they? Where's this Clippers team that I've come to know and love?" The Clippers are not catchable either. 3 games between the Mavs and the Clippers right now.
Okay.
The Mavs could move to 4th if they take care of business in front of them. The Mavs schedule is not that tough. We can see by the end of the 2 Sacramento games, the Mavs are both close. You can see them closer to 4th. Close that gap. 3 games is a lot. I'm not expecting them to do that. But all this to say, the teams around the Mavericks are kind of faltering right now. Pelicans have an injury. Clippers aren't playing well. Kings lost Kevin Herter too. Suns haven't been playing well. And the Mavs have a pretty light schedule besides those 2 teams in front of them. And gas slightly biased when we say that the team. But Mavs destiny, all this to say, Mavs are in 6th right now. And their destiny is in their hands. 5th is absolutely possible, and 4th is even possible for the Mavericks. And if you want to talk about the Mavs getting to 4th in the West, then all of a sudden, you better be going to FanDuel and putting some money down on Luka for MVP. The Mavs make it to 4th, then all of a sudden, you can't make the, the Mavs are 8th place. How can you give Luka the MVP? So, there you go. That's the standings watch for today. We'll continue to do it. And go subscribe to the Subtext if you want to get more content, more Mavs stuff. May do it over the weekend, like on just Subtext for just the Subtext listeners. So if you want to get that, subscribe. And that, guys, is what we're doing. Locked on Mavs. Peace out. Boom!
Drive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Big hour, Darren Dreger coming up later in the hour. Bill Shaken of the LA Times. Friday, Cioto Jippo and Bill. He's coming up with a big win last night. Austin Matthews, 9 points.
Big response.
Big game, big response. And William Nylander hit 90 points last night, too.
Yeah, and you know what? He had that little dip after.
Okay.
like this one very dramatic weekend.
Yeah.
But that's not really what OpenAI is about. OpenAI is really about the other 7 years.
Well, yeah, human civilization is not about the invasion of the Soviet Union by Nazi Germany, but still, that's something people focus on.
Very,
because
very understandable.
it gives us an insight into human nature, the extremes of human nature, and perhaps some of the damage and some of the triumphs of human civilization can happen in those moments. So it's like illustrative. Let me ask you about Ilya. Is he being held hostage in a secret nuclear facility?
No.
What about a regular secret facility?
No.
What about a nuclear non-secret facility?
Neither of
Okay.
that, not that either.
I mean, this is becoming a meme at some point. You've known Ilya for a long time. He was obviously in part of this drama with the board and all that kind of stuff. What's your relationship with him now?
I love Ilya. I have tremendous respect for Ilya. I don't have anything I can like say about his plans right now. That's a question for him. But I really hope we work together for, certainly the rest of my career. He's a little bit younger.
Dang, man.
He works a little bit longer.
There's a meme that he saw something. Like he maybe saw AGI and that gave him a lot of worry internally. What did Ilya see?
Ilya has not seen AGI. None of us have seen AGI. We've not built AGI. I do think one of the many things that I really love about Ilya is he takes AGI and the safety concerns, broadly speaking, including things like the impact this is going to have on society, very seriously. And as we continue to make progress, Ilya is one of the people that I've spent the most with over the last couple of years talking about what this is going to mean, what we need to do to ensure we get it right, to ensure this is a communication. So Ilya did not see AGI, but Ilya is a credit to humanity in terms of how much he thinks and worries about making sure we get this right.
I've had a bunch of conversation with him in the past. I think when he talks about technology, he's always like doing this long-term thinking type of thing. So he's not thinking about what this is going to be in a year. He's thinking about in 10 years.
Yeah.
Just thinking from first principles, like, okay, if this scales, what are the fundamentals here? Where's this going? And so that's a foundation for them thinking about like all the other safety concerns and all that kind of stuff, which makes him a really fascinating human to talk with. Do you have any idea why he's been kind of quiet? He's just doing some soul searching?
Again, I don't want to like speak for Ilya. I think that you should ask him that. He's definitely a thoughtful guy.
Your warriors have engaged
I kind of think of Ilya as like always on a soul search in a really good way.
Yes. Also, he appreciates the power of silence. Also, I'm told he's a silly guy, which I've never seen that side of him.
It's very sweet.
I've never witnessed a silly Ilya, but I look forward to that as well.
I was at a dinner party with him recently, and he was playing with a puppy, and he was like in a very silly mood, very endearing, and I was thinking, like, oh man, this is like not the side of the Ilya that the world sees the most.
Your warriors have engaged.
So just to wrap up this whole saga, are you feeling good about the board structure,
Yes.
about all of this, and like where it's moving?
I feel great about the new board. In terms of the structure of OpenAI, one of the board's tasks is to look at that and see where we can make it more robust. We wanted to get new board members in place first, but we clearly learned a lesson about structure throughout this process. I don't have, I think, super deep things to say. It was a crazy, very painful experience. I think it was like a perfect storm of weirdness. It was like a preview for me of what's going to happen as the stakes get higher and higher, and the need that we have like robust governance structures and processes and people. I am kind of happy it happened when it did, but it was a shockingly painful thing to go through.
Did it make you be more hesitant in trusting people?
Yeah.
Just on a personal level?
I think I'm making extremely trusting. I always had a life philosophy of, like, don't worry about all of the paranoia. Don't worry about the edge cases. You get a little bit screwed. in exchange for getting to live with your guard down. And this was so shocking to me. I was so caught off guard that it just definitely changed. I really don't like this. It's definitely changed how I think about just like default trust of people and planning for the bad scenarios.
You gotta be careful with that. Are you worried about becoming a little too cynical?
I'm not worried about becoming too I think I'm like too but I'm worried about just becoming like less of a default trust.
Next semester is more trust operating for a person who's developing AGI. Trusting or untrusting. It's an interesting journey you're on. But in terms of structure, see, I'm more interested on the human level. Like, how do you surround yourself with humans that are building cool shit, but also are making wise decisions? Because the more money you start making, the more power the thing has, the weirder people get.
You know, I think you could like make all kinds of comments about the board members and the level of trust I should have had there or how I should have done things differently. But in terms of the team here, I think you'd have to like give me a very good grade on that one. And I have just like enormous gratitude and trust and respect for the people that I work with every day. And I think being surrounded with people like that is really important.
Our mutual friend sued OpenAI. What to you is the essence of what he's criticizing? To what degree does he have a point? To what degree is he wrong?
I don't know what it's really about. We started off just thinking we were going to be a research lab and having no idea about how this technology was going to go. It's hard to, because it was only 7 or 8 years ago, it's hard to go back and really remember what it was like then. But just before language models were a big deal, this was before we had any idea about API or selling access to a chatbot, before we had any idea we were going to productize it all. So we're like, we're just like going to try to do research and, you know, we don't really know what we're going to do with that. I think with like many new, fundamentally new things, you start fumbling through the dark and you make some assumptions, most of which turn out to be wrong. And then it became clear that we were going to need to do different things and also have huge amounts of more capital. So we said, okay, well, the structure doesn't quite work for that. How do we patch the structure? And then you patch it again and patch it again, and you end up with something that does look kind of eyebrow-raising, to say the least. But we got here gradually with, I think, reasonable decisions at each point along the way. And doesn't mean I wouldn't do it totally differently if we could go back now with Oracle, but you don't get the Oracle at the time. But anyway, in terms of what Elon's real motivations here are, I don't know.
To the degree you remember, what was the response that OpenAI gave in the blog post? Can you summarize it?
Oh, we just said, like, you know, Elon said this sort of things. Here's our characterization, or here's the sort of, not our characterization, here's like the characterization of how this went down. We tried to like not make it emotional, and just sort of say like, here's the history.
I do think there's a degree of mischaracterization from Elon here about one of the points he just made, which is the degree of uncertainty you had at the time. You guys are a bunch of like a small group of researchers crazily talking about AGI when everybody's laughing at that thought.
Wasn't that long ago Elon was crazily talking about launching rockets?
Yeah.
When people were laughing at that thought. So I think he'd have more empathy for this.
I mean, I do think that there's personal stuff here, that there was a split, that OpenAI and a lot of amazing people here chose to part ways with Elon. There was a personal...
Elon chose to part ways.
Can you describe that exactly? The choosing to part ways?
He thought OpenAI was going to fail. He wanted total control of this to turn it around. He wanted to go in the direction that now has become OpenAI. He also wanted Tesla to be able to build an AGI effort. At various times he wanted to make OpenAI into a for-profit company that he could have control of or have it merge with Tesla. We don't want to do that, and he decided to leave, which that's fine.
So you're saying, and that's one of the things that the blog post says, is that he wanted OpenAI to be basically acquired by Tesla.
Yeah.
In the same way that, or maybe something similar, or maybe something more dramatic than Microsoft.
My memory of the proposal was just like, yeah, get acquired by Tesla and have Tesla have full control over it. I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
So what is the word open in OpenAI mean? Elon at the time, Ilya has talked about this, email exchanges and all this kind of stuff. What does it mean to you at the time? What does it mean to you now?
I would definitely pick a different, speaking of going back with an Oracle, I'd pick a different name. One of the things that I think OpenAI is doing that is the most important of everything it's doing is putting powerful technology in the hands of people for free as a public good. We don't rent ads on our free version. We don't monetize it in other ways. We just say as part of our mission, we want to put increasingly powerful tools in the hands of people for free and get them to use them. And I think that kind of open is really important to our mission. I think if you give people great tools and teach them to use them, or don't even teach them, they'll figure it out, and let them go build an incredible future for each other with that, that's a big deal. So if we can keep putting like free or low cost, powerful AI tools out in the world, I think it's a huge deal. Open source or not, yeah, I think we should open source some stuff, and other stuff does become this like religious battle line where nuance is hard to have, but I think nuance is the right answer.
So he said, change your name to Close AI and I'll drop the lawsuit. I mean, is it going to become the battleground?
What the fuck, dude?
The land of memes about
I
the
think
name?
that speaks to the seriousness with which Elon means the lawsuit. And, yeah, I mean, that's like an astonishing thing to say, I think.
Well, I don't think the lawsuit, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the lawsuit is legally serious. It's more to make a point about the future of AGI and the company that's currently leading the way. So,
look, I mean, Grok had not open sourced anything until people pointed out it was a little bit hypocritical, and then he announced that Grok will open source things this week. I don't think open source versus not open source is really about him.
well, we'll talk about open source and not. I do think maybe criticizing the competition is great. Just talking a little shit, that's great. But friendly competition versus I personally hate lawsuits.
Yeah, look, I think this whole thing is like unbecoming of a builder, and I respect Elon as one of the great builders of our time. And I know he knows what it's like to have like haters attack him, and it makes me extra sad he's doing it to us.
Yeah, he's one of the greatest builders of all time. Potentially the greatest builder of all time.
It makes me sad. And I think it makes a lot of people sad. Like, there's a lot of people who've really looked up to him for a long time, and I said in some interview or something that I missed the old Elon, and the number of messages I got being like, that exactly encapsulates how I feel.
I think you should just wait. You should just make Grok beat GPT, and then GPT beats Grok, and it's just a competition, and it's beautiful for everybody. But on the question of open source, do you think there's a lot of companies playing with this idea? It's quite interesting. I would say Meta, surprisingly, has led the way on it. Or at least took the first step in the process of really open source what shot the state of the art model, open source model. And Google is playing with the idea of open sourcing a smaller version. What are the pros and cons of open sourcing? Played around with this idea?
Yeah, I think there is definitely a place for open source models, particularly smaller models that people can run locally. I think there's huge demand for. I think there will be some open source models, there will be some closed source models. It won't be unlike other ecosystems in that way.
Well, that's not good.
I listened to All In podcast talking about this lawsuit and all that kind of stuff, and they were more concerned about the precedent going from non-profit to this cap for profit. What precedent this sets for other startups? Is that something?
I would heavily discourage any startup that was thinking about starting as a non-profit and adding like a for-profit arm where I'd happily discourage them from doing that.
So most startups should go just
For sure. And again, if we knew what was going to happen, we would have done that too.
well, like in theory, if you like dance beautifully here, you could there's like some tax incentives or whatever. But
I don't think that's like how most people think about these things.
so it's not possible to save a lot of money for a startup if you do it this way.
No, I think there's like laws that would make that pretty difficult.
Where do you hope this goes with Elon? What this tension, this dance? Where do you hope this will go 1, 2, 3 years from now? To your relationship with him on a personal level too, like friendship, family competition, just all this kind of stuff.
Mineral field.
Yeah, I mean, I really respect Elon. And I hope that years in the future we have an amicable relationship.
Yeah, I hope you guys have an amicable relationship like this month. And just compete and win and explore these ideas together. I do suppose there's competition for talent or whatever, but it should be friendly competition. Just build cool shit. And Elon is pretty good at building cool shit, but so are you. So speaking of cool shit, Sora, there's like a million questions I could ask. First of all, it's amazing. It truly is amazing. On a product level, but also just on a philosophical level. So let me just, technical / philosophical, ask, what do you think it understands about the world more or less than GPT-4? The world model, when you train on these patterns versus language tokens.
I think all of these models understand something more about the world than most of us give them credit for. And because they're also very clear things they just don't understand. It's easy to like look at the weaknesses, see through the veil, and say, it's all fake. But it's not all fake, it's just some of it works and some of it doesn't work. Like, I remember when I started first watching Sora videos and I would see like a person walk in front of something for a few seconds and occlude it, and then walk away and the same thing was still there. And I was like, oh, this is pretty good. But there's examples where like the underlying physics looks so well represented over a lot of steps in a sequence. It's like, oh, this is like quite impressive. But like fundamentally, these models are just getting better, and that'll keep happening. If you look at the trajectory from DALL-E 1 to 2 to 3 to Sora, there are a lot of people that don't know first saying it can't do this, it can't do that, and like look at it now.
The thing you just mentioned is kind of with occlusion is basically modeling the physics of the dimensional physics of the world sufficiently well to capture those kinds of things.
Well,
yeah, maybe you can tell me in order to deal with occlusion, what is the world model?
yeah. So what I would say is it's doing something to deal with occlusions really well. What I recommend is like a great underlying model of the world. A little bit more stretch.
Can you get there? Can you just be starting two-dimensional training data?
It looks like it's a won't spend too much about it. Well, let me see what's going on.
What is the nutrition?
There's all kinds of fun. At random points in a video. Pick what you want, but there's still a lot of problems, a lot of weaknesses.
Do you think that's a fundamental flaw of the approach, or is it just bigger model?
Oh, how my hotkeys got fucked up, but they did.
Technical details or better data, more data is going to solve this.
I would say yes to both. Like, I think there is something about the approach that seems to feel different from how we think and learn and whatever. And then also, I think it'll get better with scale.
Like I mentioned, LLMs have tokens, text tokens, and Sora has visual patches. So it converts all visual data, diverse kinds of visual data, videos, and images into patches. Is the training to the degree you can say fully self-supervised, or is there some manual labeling going on? Like, what's the involvement?
I mean, without saying anything specific about the Sora approach, we use lots of human data in our work.
not internet scale data. So lots of humans, lots of them. Yeah, because to me, lots, I think I'm an introvert, and when I hang out with like 3 people, that's 4 people. So I suppose you need
More than 3 people work on labeling the data for these models, yeah.
But fundamentally,
Idiot
a lot of
cool carriers.
self-supervised learning, because what you mentioned in the technical report is internet scale data. It's another beautiful. It's like poetry. So it's a lot of data that's not human label. It's like it's self-supervised in that way.
Yeah.
And then the question is how much data is there on the internet that could be used in this is conducive to this kind of self-supervised way. If only we knew the details of the self-supervised. Have you considered opening it up a little more details?
We have. You mean for Sora specifically?
Sora specifically, because it's so interesting. Can the same magical element now start moving towards visual data? And what does that take to do that?
Yes. But
Vespene Geyser exhausted.
What are the dangers? Why are you thinking about releasing the system? What are some possible dangers to this?
I mean, frankly speaking, one thing we have to do before releasing the system is just like get it to work at a level of efficiency that will deliver the system like a month like that. And there's still a ton of work to do there. But you can imagine like issues with deepfakes, misinformation. Like we try to be a thoughtful company about what we put out into the world, and it doesn't take much thought to think about the ways this can go badly.
There's a lot of tough questions here. You're dealing in a very tough space. Do you think training AI should be or is fair use under copyright law?
I think the question behind that question is, do people who create valuable data deserve to have some way that they get compensated? I would like to be able to opt out some people generating art in my style, and B, if they do generate art in my style, I'd like to have some economic associated with that.
Yeah, it's that transition from CDs to Napster to Spotify. We have to figure out some kind of model.
The model changes, but people have got to get it.
There should be some kind of incentive, if we zoom out even more, for humans to keep doing cool shit.
Like everything I worry about, humans are going to do cool shit, and society's going to find some way to reward it. That seems pretty hard. We want to create, we want to be useful, we want to like achieve status in whatever way. That's not going anywhere, I don't think.
But the reward might not be monetary, it might be like celebration.
Again, I don't think we've seen like that.
Yeah, but artists and creators, when they see Sora, they're like,
Sure, but if we're also people worried about talking and that's not the new art form, taking pictures, and I think things like that will keep people using the new tools.
if you just look on YouTube or something like this, how much of that will be using Sora like AI generated content, do you think, in the next 5 years?
People talk about like how many jobs is there in 5 years, and the framework that people have is what percentage of current jobs are actually jobs. The way I think about it is not what percent of jobs AI will do, but what percent of tasks will AI do and over what time horizon. So if you think of all of the like 5-second tasks in the economy, 5-minute tasks, 5-hour tasks, maybe even the 5-day tasks, how many of those can AI do? I think that's a way more interesting, impactful, important question than how many jobs AI can do. Because it is a tool that will work at increasing levels of sophistication and more tasks. Like people operate at people are way more efficient to do. And it's that's not just a problem. It's a positive point of view about the kinds of problems we have. I think that for videos on YouTube, it'll be the same. Many videos, maybe most of them, will use AI tools in the production, but they'll still be fundamentally by a person thinking about it, putting it together, doing parts of it. Sort of.
Yeah, it's scary, but it's interesting. I think it's really humans
Humans really care about others a lot.
because the cooler thing humans care about that for like 2 days and then they can die.
That seems very deeply wired.
It's the whole chess thing.
Yeah.
That's everybody keeps playing. And let's ignore the elephant in the room that humans are really bad at chess.
Still run races, cars are much faster. There's like a lot of it.
And they do it like type of way where you can just make videos much easier. Listen, I hate being in front of the camera. If I can figure out a way to not be lighting up, picture takes a while. That generating faces, it's getting there. But generating faces in video format is tricky for specific people. Let me ask you about GPT-4. First of all it's looking back, it'll probably be historic movement with 3, 5, and 4 ChatGPT.
Maybe 5 will be the pivotal moment.
You never know. That's the annoying thing about the future. It's hard to predict. But for me, looking back, GPT-4, ChatGPT is pretty damn impressive. Like historically. So allow me to ask, what's the most impressive capability of GPT-4 to you and GPT-4 Turbo?
I think it kind of sucks.
It's good to it also. Gotten used to an awful thing.
No, I think it is an amazing thing, but relative to where we need to get to and where I believe we will get to, kind of like GPT-3, where people are like, oh, this is amazing, this is just like novel technology, and it was. But, now we have GPT-4 and GPT-3, and you're like, that's unimaginably horrible. I expect that the delta between 5 and 4 will be the same as between 4 and 3, and I think it is our job to live a few years in the future and remember that the tools we have now are gonna kind of suck looking backwards at them, and that's make sure the future is better.
What are the most glorious ways that GPT-4 sucks? Meaning,
what are the best things it can do?
the best things it can do and the limits of those best things that allow you to say it sucks, therefore gives you inspiration and hope for the future.
One thing I've been using it for more recently is sort of like a brainstorming partner.
Yep.
And there's a glimmer of something amazing in there. I don't think it gets, when people talk about it, what it does, they're like, it helps me code more productively, it helps me write more faster and better, it helps me translate from this language to another, all these like amazing things, but there's something about the like creative that I think like one of the other things that you can see like a very small glimpse of is like help on longer horizon tasks. Break down something into multiple steps. Some of those steps, search the internet, like whatever, put that together. When that works, which is not very often, it's like very magical.
The iterative back and forth with the human. It works a lot.
The iterative back and forth is possible. They can go do like a 10-step hop on its own. Doesn't work for them as well.
Has multiple layers of abstraction.
Both, like, to break it down and then different layers of abstraction. Look, I don't want to like downplay the accomplishment of GPT-4, but I don't want to overstate it either. And I think this point that we are on on an exponential curve. We will look back relatively
Your
soon
warriors
at
have
GPT-4,
engaged the
like we look
enemy.
back at GPT-3.
That's I mean, ChatGPT was the transition towards there was a kind of, there is an uptick. Now we're kind of
And in that sense, I do think it'll be a moment where a lot of the world went from not believing to believing. That was more about the ChatGPT interface than and by the interface and product, I also mean the post-training of the model and how we tune it to be helpful to you and how to use it than the underlying model itself.
How much of those two, each of those things are important? The underlying model and the RLHF or something of that nature that tunes it to be more compelling to the human, more effective and productive for the human.
I mean, they're both super important, but the RLHF, the post-training step, the little wrapper of things that, from a compute perspective, little wrapper of things that we do on top of the base model, even though it's a huge amount of work. Mm-hmm. That's really important, to say nothing of the product that we build around it. In some sense, like, we did have to do two things. We had to invent the underlying technology, and then we had to figure out how to make it into a product people would love, which is not just about the actual product work itself, but this whole other step of how you align it and make it useful.
And how you make the scale work where a lot of people can use it at the same time, all that kind of stuff.
And that. But, that was like a known difficult thing. Like, we knew we were going to have to scale it up. We had to go do two things that had like never been done before, that were both like, I would say, quite significant achievements. And then a lot of things like scaling it up that other companies have had to do before.
How does the context window of going from 8K to 128K tokens compare from GPT-4 to GPT-4 Turbo?
People like most people don't need all the way to 128 most of the time, although, if we dream into the distant future, we'll have like way distant future, we'll have like context length of several billion. You will feed in all of your information, all of your history over time, and it'll just get to know you better and better, and that'll be great. For now, the way people use these models, they're not doing that. And, people sometimes post in a paper or, a significant fraction of a code repository, whatever. But most usage of the models is not using the long context most of the time.
I like that this is your I have a dream speech. One day you'll be judged by the full context of your character or of your whole lifetime. That's interesting. So that's part of the expansion that you're hoping for, is a greater and greater context.
I saw this internet clip once. I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but it was like Bill Gates talking about the amount of memory on some early computer. Maybe it was 64K, maybe 640K, something like that. And most of it was used for the screen buffer. And he just couldn't, it seemed genuine, couldn't imagine that the world would eventually need gigabytes of memory in a computer or terabytes of memory in a computer. And you always do. Or you always do just need to like follow the exponential of technology, and we're going to we will find out how to use better technology. So I can't really imagine what it's like right now for context lengths to go out to the billions someday. And they might not literally go there, but effectively it'll feel like that. But I know we'll use it and really not want to go back once we have it.
Yeah, even saying billions 10 years from now might seem dumb because it'll be like trillions upon trillions.
Sure.
There'll be some kind of breakthrough that will effectively feel like infinite context. But even 120, I have to be honest, I haven't pushed it to that degree. Maybe putting in entire books or like parts of books and so on, papers. What are some interesting use cases of GPT-4 that you've seen?
The thing that I find most interesting is not any particular use case, that we can talk about those, but it's people who kind of like, this is mostly younger people, but people who use it as like their default start for any kind of knowledge work task.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that it can do a lot of things reasonably well. You can use GPT-V, you can use it to help you write code, you can use it to help you do search, you can use it to like edit a paper. The most interesting thing to me is the people who just use it as the start of their workflow.
I do as well for many things. Like I use it as a a reading partner for reading books. It helps me think through ideas, especially when the books are classics. So it's really well written about, and it actually is as I find it often to be significantly better than even like Wikipedia on well-covered topics. It's somehow more balanced and more nuanced. Or maybe it's me, but it inspires me to think deeper than a Wikipedia article does. I'm not exactly sure what that is. You mentioned like this collaboration. I'm not sure where the magic is. If it's in here or if it's in there, or if it's somewhere in between. I'm not sure. But one of the things that concerns me for knowledge tasks when I start with GPT is I'll usually have to do fact checking after, like check that it didn't come up with fake stuff. How do you figure that out? That GPT can come up with fake stuff that sounds really convincing. So how do you ground it in truth?
That's obviously an area of intense interest for us. I think it's going to get a lot better with upcoming versions, but we'll have to continue to work on it, and we're not going to have it like all solved this year.
Well, the scary thing is like as it gets better, you'll start not doing the fact checking normally, right?
I'm of two minds about that. I think people are like much more sophisticated users of technology than we often give them credit for. And people seem to really understand that GPT, any of these models hallucinate some of the time, and if it's mission critical, you got to check it.
Except journalists don't seem to understand that. I've seen journalists half-assedly just using GPT for. It's
of the long list of things I'd like to dunk on journalists for, this is not my top criticism of them.
Well, I think the bigger criticism is perhaps the pressures and the incentives of being a journalist is that you have to work really quickly in this short time. I would love our society to incentivize I would long like a journalistic effort for days and weeks and reward great in-depth journalism. Also journalism that presents stuff in a balanced way where it's like celebrates people while criticizing them, even though the criticism is the thing that gets clicks. And making shit up also gets clicks. And headlines that look correct too. I'm sure we have a lot of people dunking that. Well, all that drama probably got a lot of clicks.
Probably did.
And that's the biggest problem about human civilization. I'd love to see people celebrate a bit more. You've given ChatGPT the ability to have memories. You've been playing with that about previous conversation. And also the ability to turn off memory. I wish I could do that sometimes. Just turn on and off, depending. I guess sometimes alcohol can do that, but not optimally, I suppose. What have you seen through that, like playing around with that idea of remembering conversations or not?
We're very early in our explorations here, but I think what people want, or at least what I want for myself, is a model that gets to know me and gets more useful to me over time. This is an early exploration. I think there's like a lot of other things to do, but that's where we'd like to head. You'd like to use a model, and over the course of your life, or use a system, there'll be many models, and over the course of your life, it gets better and better.
Yeah, how hard is that problem? Because right now it's more like remembering little factoids and preferences and so on. What about remembering, like, don't you want GPT to remember all the shit you went through in November and all the drama? And then because right now you're clearly blocking it out a little bit.
It's not just that I want it to remember that. I want it to integrate the lessons of that.
Yes.
And remind me in the future what to do differently or what to watch out for. And, we all gain from experience over the course of our lives, varying degrees. And I'd like my AI agent to gain that experience too. So if we go back and let ourselves imagine that, trillions and trillions of context length, if I can put every conversation I've ever had with anybody in my life in there, if I can have all of my emails input out, like all of my input output in the context window every time I ask a question, that'd be pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, I think that would be very cool. People sometimes will hear that and be concerned about privacy. What do you think about that aspect of it? The more effective the AI becomes at really integrating all the experiences and all the data that happened to you, give you advice,
I think the right answer there is just user choice. You know, anything I want stricken from the record for my AI agent, I want to be able to like take out. If I don't want it to remember anything, I want that too. You and I may have different opinions about where on that privacy utility trade-off for our own AI we want to be, which is totally fine. But I think the answer is just like really easy user choice.
But there should be some high level of transparency from a company about the user choices. Sometimes companies in the past have been kind of shady about like, it's kind of presumed that we're collecting all your data and we're using it for a good reason, for advertisement and so on. But there's not a transparency about the details of that.
That's totally true. You know, you mentioned earlier that I'm like blocking out the November stuff.
I was just teasing you.
Well, I mean, I think it was a very traumatic thing, and it did immobilize me for a long time. Like, definitely the hardest. Like, the hardest work thing I've had to do was just like keep working that period, because I had to like, you know, try to come back in here and put the pieces together while I was just like in sort of shock and pain. And, you know, nobody really cares about that. I mean, getting it past, I was not working at my normal level, but there was a period where I was just like, it was really hard to have to do both. But I kind of woke up one morning and I was like, this was a horrible thing that happened to me. I think I could just feel like a victim forever. Or I can say this is like the most important work I'll ever touch in my life, and I need to get back to it. And it doesn't mean that I repressed it, because sometimes I like wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it. But I do feel like an obligation to keep moving forward.
Well, that's beautifully said, but there could be some lingering stuff in there. Like what I would be concerned about is that trust thing that you mentioned. That being paranoid about people, as opposed to just trusting everybody or most people, like using your gut. It's a tricky dance. I mean, because I've seen in my part-time explorations, I've been diving deeply into the Zelensky administration and the Putin administration and the dynamics there in wartime in a very highly stressful environment. And what happens is distrust, and you isolate yourself slowly, and you start to not see the world clearly. And that's a concern. That's a human concern. You seem to have taken it in stride and kind of learned the good lessons and felt the love and let the love energize you, which is great, but still can linger in there. There's just some questions I would love to ask. Your intuition about what's GPT able to do and not. So it's allocating approximately the same amount of compute for each token it generates. Is there room there in this kind of approach to slower thinking, sequential thinking?
I think there will be a new paradigm for that kind of
Will it be similar to unprofessional, like maybe some a layer on top of that one?
I can imagine many ways to do that. I think that's less important than the question you were getting at, which is, do we need a way to do a slower kind of thinking where the answer doesn't have to get like, you know, it's like I guess like spiritually you could say that you want an AI to be able to think harder about a harder problem,
right,
and answer more quickly about an easier problem. And I think that will be important.
Is that like a human thought that we're just having? You should be able to think hard. Is that a lot of intuition?
I suspect that's a reasonable intuition.
So it's not possible once the GPT gets like GPT-7, we'll just be instantaneously be able to see, you know, here's the proof of
It seems to me like you want to be able to allocate more compute to harder problems. Like, it seems to me that a system knowing, if you ask a system like that, Fermat's last theorem versus what's today's date, unless it already knew and had memorized, but
it looks like that's what basically
I mean, there's a lot of things that what the right or the best way to do that will be.
It does make me think of the mysterious, the lore behind Q-Star. What's this mysterious Q-Star project? Is it also in the same nuclear facility?
depleted.
There is no nuclear facility.
That's what a person with a nuclear facility always says.
I would love to have a secret nuclear facility. There isn't one.
All right.
Maybe someday.
Someday? All right. 1, 2, 3.
OpenAI is not. It would be nice.
Can you speak to what the car is?
We are not ready to talk about that.
See, but what's that?
I mean, we work on all kinds of things. We have said for a while that we think systems is an important direction that we'd like to pursue. We haven't cracked the code yet. We're very interested in it.
Is there going to be moments, freestyle or otherwise, where
The water me loan.
That's a good point. It's interesting when you get on.
this is kind of a theme that you say, is a graduate, you're basically graduating. But from an outsider perspective, for me just watching it, it does feel like there's leaps. But to you, there isn't.
I do wonder if we should have. So, part of the reason that we deploy the way we do is that we think, we call it iterative deployment. We, rather than
A little too greedy.
All the way to GPT-5, we decided to start with and part of the reason there is I think AI and supply things go together. And also the world, people, institutions, whatever you want to call it, need time. And I think one of the best things that OpenAI has done is this strategy, and we get the world to pay attention, taking it seriously, to think about what systems and structures and governance we want in place before we're like under the gun and have to make a rough decision. I think that's really good. But the fact that people like you and others say makes me like we should be doing our releases. Our goal is not to have a shot at it.
Yeah, for sure. More iterative would be amazing.
But that's what we're trying to do. That's like our stated strategy. And I think we're somehow missing the mark. So maybe we should think about, releasing GPT-5 in a different way or something like that.
Is under attack.
A lot of people tend to like to celebrate. People celebrate birthdays. No humans, they kind of have these milestones.
I do know some humans. People do like milestones. I totally get that. I think we like milestones too. It's like fun to, say declare victory on this one and go start the next thing. But yeah, I feel like we're somehow getting this a little bit wrong.
So, when is GPT-5 coming out again?
I don't know. That's the honest answer.
Is it blink twice if it's this year?
We will release
Field depleted.
an amazing new model this year. I don't know what we'll call it.
So that goes to the question of like, what's the way we release this thing?
We'll release
Base is
over
under attack.
in the coming months
Mineral field.
many different things. I think that'd be great. I think before we talk about like a GPU, call that or not.
I don't know what this is. You're making me nervous. What are some of the biggest challenges and bottlenecks to overcome for whatever it comes out? Just like to ask, is it on the compute side, technical side?
What's the one big unlock? Is it a bigger computer? Is it like a new secret? Is it something else? It's all of these things together. Like the thing that OpenAI does really well. This is actually an original quote that I'm going to butcher, but it's something like we multiply 200 medium-sized things together into one giant thing.
So there's this distributed
Oh, I have an
constellation
op.
happening.
Yeah.
Like, even on the technical side, like really detailed approaches, like detailed aspects of everything. How does that work with different teams? How does the medium-sized thing become more like a giant transformer? How does this?
There's a few people who have to like think about putting the whole thing together, but a lot of people try to keep most of the picture.
Oh, like the individual teams and everything.
I love it. We don't know exactly how these work, of course, but one thing I think is genuinely it's sometimes useful to do and
Did you kill my obs again?
kidding. Technical problem for like business. But things come together in ways that having an understanding of that whole picture, even if most of the time you're operating within one area, is always surprising. That one of the things that I used to have, and I think was super valuable, a good amount of all this and I could sometimes see these connections with new things that were possible that if I were only in one area, I wouldn't be able to like have the idea for it. I wouldn't have all the data. And I don't really have that much anymore. It's super deep now. But I know that it's right.
You're not the man you used to be, Sam.
Very different job now than what I used to have.
Speaking of zooming out, let's zoom out to another cheeky thing, but profound thing perhaps that you said. You tweeted about needing $7 trillion.
I did not tweet about that. I never said like we're raising $7 trillion. Blah blah blah.
Oh, that's somebody else.
Yeah.
Oh, but you said fuck it, maybe 8. I think.
Yeah, I should have
Okay,
built.
I mean like once.
What's up,
there's,
Water
like,
Melon? I
misinformation
should have
out in
built
the world.
gateways
What do you
faster.
mean? But
I was
so
just a little
misinformation
too
may
greedy.
have a foundation of like insight there.
I had like 4 nexuses
Look, I think
and
compute is
like
going to
one
be the currency
gateway
of
or
the future.
something
I think it will be
some
maybe
point.
the most precious commodity in the world, and I think we should be investing heavily to make a lot more compute. Compute is it's an unusual. I think it's going to be an unusual market.
that was a
you know,
bummer.
people think
I just
about
forgot to build gateways. Sometimes that.
the market for like
Sometimes
chips
I
or
play
mobile
just like
phones or something like
autopilot.
that. And you can say that okay.
I use
there's 8 billion
F1
people
through
in the world,
F4
maybe
for
10 billion
camera
phones, maybe
hotkeys.
they- or 6 billion, let's say. They upgrade every 2 years, so the market per year is 3 billion system on chip for smartphones.
It's going on
And if you
D4
make
RY.
30 billion, you will not sell 10 times as many phones because most people have one phone. But compute is different. Like intelligence is going to be more like energy or something like that.
Yeah,
where
I just
the only thing that I think makes sense to
just didn't add any gateways.
talk about
4
is
gateways.
price X. The world will
4
use
net.
this much.
No,
compute
yeah,
and
4
price Y
gateways,
the
4
world will use
nexus
this
at
much
one
compute.
point.
Because if it's really cheap, I'll have it like.
So after my
emailed
3
every, like,
nexus, I
give me
should
suggestions
pump
about
up to
what I should think
like
about or work on, and trying to keep cancer.
8
If it's really
gates or
expensive,
whatever,
maybe I'll only use it.
and then
I'll
go
only
from
use it,
there.
Try to cure cancer. So, I think the world is going to want a tremendous amount of compute. And there's a
Yeah,
lot of
camera
parts of
hotkeys
that
are much
that
more
hard.
efficient as far as that
Energy is
goes.
the hardest part. Building data centers is also hard. The supply chain is hard, and then of course fabricating enough chips is hard.
And maybe
but
delay
this
like
seems to me where
storm.
things are going. Like we're gonna want an amount of compute that's just hard to reason about right now.
How do you solve the energy puzzle? Nuclear
That's what I believe.
fusion?
That's what I believe.
Nuclear fusion.
Yeah.
Who's going to solve that?
I think Helion's doing the best work, but I'm happy there's like a race for fusion right now. Nuclear fission, I think, is also like quite amazing, and I hope
Nice.
there's a world
Yeah,
that
just
can
keep practicing.
re-embrace that.
Takes a long time
It's really
to
sad to me how the history of that went, and
get good
I
at
hope
it.
we get back to it in a meaningful way.
So to you, part of the puzzle is nuclear fission, like nuclear reactors as we currently have them. And a lot of people are terrified because of Chernobyl and so on.
Well, I think we should make new reactors. I think it's just like it's a shame that industry kind of ground to a halt.
And just mass hysteria is how you explain the halt.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know humans, but that's one of the dangers. That's one of the security threats for nuclear fission is humans seem to be really afraid of it. And that's something we have to incorporate into the calculus of it. So we have to kind of win people over and to show how safe it is.
I worry about that for AI.
Mm-hmm.
I think some things are going to go theatrically wrong with AI.
Let's try again.
I don't know what the percent chance is that I eventually get shot, but it's not 0.
Oh, like we want to stop this.
Maybe.
How do you decrease the theatrical nature of it? You know, I've already starting to hear rumblings, because I do talk to people on both sides of the political spectrum. Hear rumblings where it's going to be politicized. AI is going to be politicized. It really worries me, because then it's like maybe the right is against AI and the left is for AI because it's going to help the people, or whatever the narrative and formulation is that really worries me. And then the theatrical nature of it can be leveraged fully. How do you fight that?
I think it will get caught up in like left versus right wars. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but I think that's just what happens with anything of consequence, unfortunately. What I meant more about theatrical risks is
Okay.
AI is going to have, I believe, tremendously more good consequences than bad ones, but it is going to have bad ones, and there will be some bad ones that are bad but not theatrical. You know, like, a lot more people have died of air pollution than nuclear reactors, for example. But most people worry more about putting a nuclear reactor than a coal plant. But something about the way we're wired is that although there's many different kinds of risks we have to confront, the ones that make a good climax scene of a movie carry much more weight with us than the ones that are very bad over a long period of time but on a slow burn.
Well, that's why truth matters, and hopefully AI can help us see the truth of things, to have balance, to understand what are the actual risks, what are the actual dangers of things in the world. What are the pros and cons of the competition in the space and competing with Google, Meta, XAI, and others?
I think I have a pretty straightforward answer to this. There maybe a more nuanced later, but the pros seem obvious, which is that we get better products and more innovation faster and cheaper, and all the reasons competition is good. And the con is that I think if we're not careful, it could lead to an increase in sort of the arms race that I'm nervous about.
Do you feel the pressure of the arms race, like in some negative times?
Definitely in some ways, for sure. We spend a lot of time talking about the need to prioritize safety, and I've said for a long time that you think of a quadrant of slow timelines for the start of AGI, long timelines, and then a short takeoff or a fast takeoff. I think short timelines, slow takeoff is the safest quadrant and the one I'd most like us to be in. But I do want to make sure we get that slow takeoff.
What the heck?
Part of the problem I have with this kind of slight beef with Elon is that there's silos are created, and it, as opposed to collaboration on the safety aspect of all of this, it tends to go into silos and closed. Open source perhaps in the model.
Elon says, at least, that he cares a great deal about camera safety and is really worried about it, and I assume that he's not going to do this unsafely.
Yeah, but collaboration I think is really beneficial for everybody on that front.
Not really the thing he's most known for.
Well, he is known for caring about humanity, and humanity benefits from collaboration. And so there's always a tension and incentives and motivations, and in the end, I do hope humanity prevails.
I was thinking, someone just reminded me the other day about how the day that he got surpassed Jeff Bezos for richest person in the world, he tweeted a silver medal at Jeff Bezos. I hope we have less stuff like that.
Thank you. I think Elon is a friend, and he's a beautiful human being, and one of the most important humans ever. That stuff is not good.
The amazing stuff about Elon is amazing, and I super respect him. I think we need him. All of us should be rooting for him. We need him to step up as a leader.
Yeah, I hope you can have one without the other. But sometimes humans are flawed and complicated and all that.
There's a lot of really great leaders throughout history.
Yeah, and we can each be the best version of ourselves and strive to do so. Let me ask you, Google, with the help of search, has been dominating the past 20 years think it's fair to say, in terms of the access, the world access to information, how we interact with the world. One of the nerve-wracking things for Google, but for the entirety of people in the space, is thinking about how are people going to access information.
Yeah.
Like you said, people show up to GPT as a starting point. So is OpenAI going to really take on this thing that Google started 20 years ago, which is how do we get?
I find that boring. I mean, if the question is like, if we can build a better search engine than Google or whatever, then sure, we should like go, you know, we should use better product. But I think that was so understated what this can be. You know, Google shows you like 10 blue links, well, like 13 ads and then 10 blue links, and that's like one way to find information. But the thing that's exciting to me is not that we can go build a better copy of Google search, but that maybe there's just some much better way to help people find and act and on and synthesize information. I think ChatGPT is that for some use cases, and hopefully we'll make it be like that for a lot more use cases. But I don't think it's that interesting to say, like, how do we go do a better job of giving 10 ranked web pages to look at than what Google does? Maybe it's really interesting to go say, how do we help you get the answer or the information you need? How do we help create that in some cases? And others are pointing to it, and yet others. But a lot of people have tried to make a better search engine than Google, and it is a hard technical problem, it is a hard branding problem, it is a hard ecosystem problem. I think the world is
Integrating chatbot that ChatGPT with a search engine.
That's cooler.
It's cool, but it's tricky. It's like if you just do it simply, it's awkward because like if you just shove it in there,
Yeah.
it can be awkward.
As you might guess, we are interested in something that would be an example. That's not just like
a heterogeneous, like integrating.
the intersection of LLM plus search. I don't think anyone has cracked the code on yet.
Yeah. What about the ad price? You ever consider monetization?
You know, I kind of hate ads just as like an aesthetic choice. I think ads needed to happen on the internet for a bunch of reasons to get it going. But the more mature industries, the world is richer now. I like that people pay for ChatGPT and know that the answers they're getting are not used by advertisers. There is, I'm sure, there's an ad unit that makes sense for LLMs, and I'm sure there's a way to like participate in the transaction stream in an unbiased way that is okay to do. But it's also easy to think about like the dystopic visions of the future where you ask ChatGPT something and it says, oh, here's, you should think about buying this product, or you should think about, this going here for your vacation or whatever. And I don't know, like, we have a very simple business model, and I like it. And I know that I'm not this model. When I go to use like whatever Google or any other great product, but ad-supported great product, I don't love that, and I think it gets worse, not better, in a world with AI.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine AI would be better at showing the best kind of version of ads, not in a dystopic future, but where the ads are for things you actually need. But then, does that system always result in the ads driving the kind of stuff that's shown and all that business? Yeah, I think it was a really bold move of Wikipedia not to do advertisements, but then it makes it very challenging as a business model. So you're saying the current thing with OpenAI is sustainable from a business perspective?
Well, we have to figure out how to grow, but looks like if the question is, do I think we can have a great business that pays for our compute needs without ads, that I think the answer is yes.
Well, that's promising. I also just don't want to completely throw out ads.
I'm not saying that. I guess I'm saying I have a bias against them.
Yeah, I have also a bias and just a skepticism in general. And in terms of interface, because I personally just have like a spiritual dislike of crap interfaces, which is why AdSense, when it first came out, was a big leap forward versus like animated banners or whatever. But like, it feels like there should be many more leaps forward in advertising that doesn't interfere with the consumption of the content. It doesn't interfere in the big fundamental way, which is like what you were saying. Like, it will manipulate the truth to suit the advertisers. Let me ask you about safety, compliance, safety, short-term safety, long-term. The Gemini 1.5 came out, which there's a lot of drama around it. And it generated black Nazis, black founding fathers. They're the same. That's to frustrate the people, but there is this hidden layer of safety, the harm caused by model, but there is a lot of bias. It's sort of an ideological lean within a company. How do you deal with that?
I mean, we work super hard not to do things like that. We've made our own mistakes. We'll make others. I assume Google will learn from this one, still make others. It is all, like, these are not easy problems. One thing that we've been thinking about more and more is, I think this was a great idea somebody here had, like, it'd be nice to write out what the desired behavior of a model is, make that public, take input on it, say, here's how this model's supposed to behave, and explain the edge cases too. And then when a model is not behaving in a way that you want, it's at least clear about whether that's a bug the company should fix or behaving as intended and you should debate the policy. And right now it can sometimes be caught in between. Like, black Nazi is obviously ridiculous, but there are a lot of other kind of subtle things that you could make a judgment call on either way.
Yeah, but sometimes if you write it out and make it public, you can use kind of language that's, the Google's AI principle is a very high level.
That's not what I'm talking about. That doesn't work. Like, I'd have to say, when you ask it to do thing X, it's supposed to respond in way Y.
So, like, literally, who's better, Trump or Biden? What's the expected response from a model? Like, something like very concrete.
Yeah, I'm open to a lot of ways a model could behave them, but I think you should have to say, here's the principle and here's what it should say in that case.
That would be really nice.
Yeah.
That would be really nice. And then everyone kind of agrees. Because there's this anecdotal data that people pull out all the time. And if there's some clarity about other representative anecdotal examples, you can define.
Yeah. And then when it's a bug, and the company can fix that.
Right. Then it'd be much easier to deal with a black Nazi type of image generation if there's great examples. Yeah. So San Francisco is a bit of an ideological bubble, tech in general as well. Do you feel the pressure of that within a company, that there's like a lean towards the left politically that affects the product, that affects the teams?
I feel very lucky that we don't have the challenges at OpenAI that I have heard of at a lot of other companies. I think part of it is, like, every company's got some ideological thing. We have one about AGI and belief in that, and it pushes out some others. Like, we are much less caught up in the culture war than I've heard about at a lot of other companies. San Francisco's a mess in all sorts of ways, of course.
So that doesn't infiltrate OpenAI as...
I'm sure it does in all sorts of subtle ways, but not in the obvious. Like, I think we've had our flare-ups for sure, like any company, but I don't think we have anything like what I hear about happen at other companies here on this topic.
What's in general is the process for the bigger question of safety? How do you provide that layer that protects the model from doing crazy, dangerous things?
I think there will come a point where that's mostly what we think about, the whole company. And it won't be like, it's not like you have one safety team. It's like when we shipped GPT-4, that took the whole company thinking about all these different aspects and how they fit together, and I think it's going to take that. More and more of the company.
That's literally what humans will be thinking about the more powerful AI becomes. So most of the employees at OpenAI will be thinking safety, or at least to some degree.
Broadly defined, yeah.
I wonder what are the full broad definitions? Like, what are the different harms that can be caused? Is this like on a technical level, Or is this almost like
It'll be all
security
those
threats?
things. I mean, it'll be, yeah, I was going to say, it'll be people, state actors trying to steal the model. It'll be all of the technical alignment work. It'll be societal impacts, economic impacts. It's not just like we have one team thinking about how to align the model. It's really going to be like getting to the good outcome is going to take the whole effort.
How hard do you think people, state actors perhaps, are trying to hack? First of all, infiltrate OpenAI, but second of all, like infiltrate unseen.
They're trying.
What kind of
Warriors have
accent do they
engaged
have?
the enemy.
I don't think I should go into any further details on this point.
Okay. But I presume it'll be more and more and more.
That feels reasonable.
Boy, what a dangerous space. What aspect of the leap, and sorry to linger on this, even though you can't quite say details yet, but what aspects of the leap from GPT-4 to GPT-5 are you excited about?
I'm excited about being smarter, and I know that sounds like a glib answer, but I think the really special thing happening is that it's not like it gets better in this one area and worse at others. It's getting like better across the board.
Yeah, there's this magical moment. I mean, you meet certain people, you hang out with people, you talk to them. You can't quite put a finger on it, but they kind of get you. Like, it's not intelligence really. It's like it's something else. And that's probably how I would characterize the progress. It's not like, yeah, you can point out, look, if you can get this or that. But it's just to which degree is there's this intellectual connection to, like, you feel like there's an understanding in your crappy formulated prompts that you're doing, that it grasps the deeper question behind the question. Yeah, I'm also excited by that. I mean, all of us love being understood, heard and understood.
That's for sure.
That's a weird feeling. Even like with programming, like when you're programming and you say something, or just the completion that GPT might do, it's just such a good feeling when it got you. And I look forward to getting you better. On the programming front, looking out into the future, how much programming do you think humans will be doing 5-10 years from now?
I mean, a lot, but I think it'll be in a very different shape. Like, maybe some people program entirely in natural language.
Entirely natural language.
I mean, no one programs like writing by code. No one programs with uncode anymore. Does. But you know what I mean.
You're gonna get a lot of angry comments. No. It's very cool. I've been looking for people who program Fortran. It's hard to find, even Fortran. I hear you, but that changes the nature of what the skill set or the predisposition for the kind of people we call programmers.
Changes the skill set. How much it changes the treatment?
It's the same kind of program. Programming is hard. Like how get like that last 1%.
Yeah, I think most of it is the best. Way to like get things done in the physical world is like making people do it. So I really hope that as part of this transition, as this phase change, we'll also get
I mean, OpenAI has some quite good people.
yeah,
but they have a little funny.
Small companies, but like we will.
That sounds good. Inspiring.
not like AGI is also not an ending. It's much more of a. It's closer to a beginning, but it's much more a mile marker than either of those things.
I hate this build, dude.
What I would say, in answer to your question, is I expect that by the end of this decade, we will have one we look at as like
Yeah, but if you look at that, show that to Alan Turing, or not even Alan Turing, people in the 90s, they would be like, this is definitely AGI. Or not definitely, but there's a lot of experts that would say this is AGI.
Yeah, but I don't think 3.5 changed the world. It maybe changed the world.
Why is my robo so late? I see him moving across.
And it did kind of like get more.
It's just a tank and nothing else. It's so crazy.
That's really important too. So again, I don't want to undersell it. I think it.
I built these batteries up here. I need them down here.
Artifact. I don't think we're gonna look back at that and say that was a threshold that really changed the world itself.
So to you, you're looking